Hey, Rumble World Entertainment, and it's been a while since we've had an update on this movie, and now we have a big update on the John Rambo origin movie because it has now officially entered production. Yep, they've started production officially. So, let's see what we can expect. So, a new era for the legendary action hero has begun as production is officially underway on John Rambo, the origin story of one of cinema's most iconic characters. The film stars Noah Centineo as a young Rambo, with director, I can never really pronounce his first name, it's like Hamire Helander of Sisu, promises a raw, stripped down survival story rooted in grit, trauma and transformation. So that's interesting to hear. The announcement was accompanied by a stark black and white poster featuring a battered hand gripping military dog tags, a powerful callback to the character's Vietnam War past, and a personal statement from Helander reflects on the impact of the 1982's First Blood, which he wrote, which the statement you'll be seeing as well. He wrote this saying, "When I was 11, I saw First Blood for the first time and it changed my life. Rambo wasn't just a film to me, it stayed with me growing up and was a defining influence on why I wanted to become a filmmaker." As we begin production on the origin of John Rambo, we're going back to the beginning. This is Rambo stripped down, raw and real. A survival story about endurance, persistence and lost innocence. It's an honor to shape this next chapter with deep respect for the character and the legacy, and to bring audiences the start of John Rambo's journey. Now, I think what he says there is what you want to hear. You know, he's honored to respect the next chapter and this legacy of Rambo and stuff. I like hearing that it's stripped down, it's going to be raw, it's going to be real, that it's this survival story. I like that little part he put in there as well at the end saying, and lost innocence, because that's one of the things that Stallone talked about, his idea for the original prequel where he would have de-aged himself and stuff like that, was that you were going to see Rambo before he goes off, where he fought the war. It'll be an easy in and out, it'll be a great blast, you know, with his friends and stuff, and they'll just have a great time, go overseas, do a quick job and be back. And the fact that you're hearing here is like you'll see lost innocence. The only criticism I would have towards this whole statement and this whole thing altogether is the fact that he's saying he has deep respect for the character and the legacy, and he's so excited and stuff to bring this new journey to the big screen for a new audience and audiences in general. It would have been better if he had Stallone involved in some way. That's my biggest issue, is that Stallone is not involved in any way. Like, he didn't, consult on the story or anything with the character, anything like that. So I think it would have been better if they just asked Stallone for some guidance and stuff like that. You know, he doesn't have to be a producer or anything, but if they just sat down and talked with him, I think that would have been better. But it's saying here, Helander emphasized that this new film won't be a modern action spectacle, but a character-driven origin story grounded in emotional weight and survival. Again, that is good. So, John Rambo will explore the roots of the tortured soldier before he became the one-man army made famous by Sylvester Stallone. While plot details are under wraps, it's expected the film will dive into Rambo's earlier life, his military experience and the emotional scars that shaped his worldview. This marks the first Rambo project without Stallone, who last appeared in Rambo Last Blood in 2019. Noah Centineo, known for his work in Black Adam and The Recruit, steps into the role with a chance to redefine the character for a new generation. Centineo is also starring in the upcoming Street Fighter movie as Ken Masters. Director Helander has earned praise for his ability to blend stylized action with emotionally driven storytelling, and fans of the franchise will be watching closely to see how he reinterprets the legacy of a cinematic icon. And that is one of the things. What will they do with it? Now, the interesting thing, and I've spoken about this quite a bit with the other videos on all this stuff, is how they're talking about Noah Centineo. I think that's how you pronounce his second name anyway. But anyway, that he's going to be like redefining what the character is for people, and they get this explore him in a new and different way, and where does it go from there? And as I've always pointed out, it goes nowhere from there, because from the time he returns home, we enter First Blood. So there's really nowhere this goes. This is pretty much a one and done. It would have to be, unless the ultimate goal is to remake First Blood, and it doesn't sound like that is the intention here at all, especially with that statement from Helander, or Lander, whatever his name is, the director, saying like how, you know, he's deep, he has this deep respect for the character and the legacy and all this, and he's just pretty much wants to tell you the story of what made Rambo the Rambo we meet in First Blood. So that's a one and done. So the idea of like, could the studio be looking at this and go, hey, we want this to be a new trilogy? You can't. There's no trilogy out of this. Again, once he falls apart and everything that happens to him, what happens in Vietnam, he brings that home, and we first meet him from those experiences in First Blood. So unless their plan is to try and remake First Blood, which is a colossal mistake, because you are never going to get the audiences on board the same way, you're done. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this works. You know, you don't want this to have this massive budget, and I doubt it will. Does it say? I can't remember whether it said what studio is making this. I also find that actually interesting that the story is rooted in grit, trauma, and transformation. That transformation is obviously where he also spoke about the loss of innocence. That you're going to see him transform from being this, you know, I'm assuming somewhat of a laid-back guy that's kind of, you know, fun going and whatnot, thinking, yeah, this is going to be a blast, you know, we'll just go in, we'll do what we have to and stuff, and, you know, he'll start seeing his friends getting blown to pieces, and, you know, that is one of the questions I think as well we'll have to ask is, will they include moments of that speech Stallone gives at the end of First Blood where he's talking about his friends being, you know, blown apart and they're all over him, and the one guy, you know, he's got no legs and all that type of stuff. Will they show that? Quite frankly, I hope not. Just for the sake of seeing that, to the emotional impact of seeing Stallone's performance and delivery of that moment in First Blood, I think that could almost dilute that, you know, if you're seeing what he's pouring out to you in First Blood. So I kind of hope they don't quite show that. Obviously they're going to show you a lot, but I hope they just don't show all of that stuff. But yeah, I don't see it anywhere saying what studio it is. I can't remember whether or not they said what studios were meant to be making these. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. If anything, I'm curious about it. I am worried about a Rambo movie happening without Stallone. You know, there's no if, buts, ands about that. I am worried, you know. Because, and not because it's the case of, oh, well, it's time for someone else to take over. Like, Creed could continue because, yeah, although it's the Rocky universe, it wasn't focused on Rocky. So, obviously, it could move on without him. This is a different story because this is Stallone. You know, Rambo is Stallone. So the fact that you're going to get for the very first time a Rambo on the big screen that won't be Stallone, and that Stallone will have zero involvement in anything with it, that is worrying. But I am very curious to see what comes of this. The guy who's making it, like Helander, like Sisu, was a great movie. So yeah, the type of action, you know, he can do and stuff, okay, even though some of it in Sisu does get a little over the top and he has more fun with it. This is obviously going to be very different. It's going to be very dark, gritty, you know, stripped down, as he says, and raw and stuff like that. So it's definitely going to be very interesting. But What do you guys think? Are you interested in this? Are you excited for this? What do you think about his statement about respecting this movie and the legacy of the character and stuff like that? And do you think Stallone should have had some involvement in some way? Let me know. And with that, I shall leave it there for this one. So do like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Cheers, and I shall catch you in the next one.